Playoff basketball is supposed to be pure. The best against the best. Every possession magnified. Every whistle heavy with meaning. But when the Indiana Fever stepped into their opening game against the Atlanta Dream, it felt less like basketball and more like survival. Not just survival against Atlanta's depth and talent, but survival against the very people meant to ensure fairness, the referees. For head coach Stephanie White, the breaking point came when the whistles turned the game into something unrecognizable. She exploded on the sideline, earning a technical foul not for losing control, but for voicing what every Fever fan watching already felt deep down. Something wasn't right. Indiana's nightmare began long before tip-off. Imagine walking into the playoffs already stripped of half your rotation. Caitlin Clark, out with a groin injury. Chloe Bibby, knee injury. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Colson, both sidelined with knees. Ari McDonald, foot injury. And then, just hours before the game, Damaris Dantas ruled out with a concussion. 6 players gone. 6 rotation pieces erased before the postseason even began. The Fever had clawed their way to the 6th seed all season, fighting through adversity every step of the way, only to arrive at the playoffs stitched together with tape, grit, and whoever was still standing. The bench told the story better than words could. 6 players in street clothes filled so many seats that Indiana had to form a second row. It looked less like a playoff bench and more like a reunion. Sophie Cunningham even joked she'd basically joined the medical staff at this point. But beneath the laughter was a harsh truth. Indiana wasn't stepping into battle with reinforcements. They were sending out whoever was left standing. And yet the image of the whole roster traveling together, refusing to leave anyone behind, radiated something powerful. Resilience. And early on, resilience turned into fire. Kelsey Mitchell came out attacking, scoring with the confidence of someone who refused to let the moment swallow her. Aaliyah Boston threw her body into the paint, muscling for boards, challenging Atlanta's size, reminding everyone why she's the backbone of Indiana's future. The Fever stunned the Dream with a 15-6 start, playing like a team deaf to the whispers of doubt. For a brief, beautiful stretch, it felt like maybe the impossible was within reach. And then the whistles arrived. Ryan Howard slipped on her own, and somehow Indiana got called. Lexi Hull fought for position whistle, foul. Kelsey Mitchell brushed a hip whistle, foul again. Fans at home didn't need slow-motion replays. They could see the pattern. Meanwhile, Atlanta's physicality went unchecked. Elbows in the paint, shoves under the rim, Boston taking hit after hit with no call. The referees weren't just missing plays. They were tilting the game. Stephanie White had no choice but to challenge. She burned both of her reviews in the first half, just to protect her team. Both times, the replay showed what was obvious. The calls were wrong. But with no challenges left, Indiana became exposed to whatever whistles came next. And they came often. By the fourth quarter, when White finally snapped after yet another missed call, the technical was instant. It wasn't discipline. It was a message. Sit down and take it. This wasn't just about points on the board. It was about rhythm, about energy. Every time Indiana made a clean stop, it turned into free throws. Every time they built momentum, it was halted by a whistle. Hustle was punished instead of rewarded. Odyssey Sims dove for a loose ball, what should have been celebrated as effort turned into yet another foul. The Fever weren't just facing Atlanta, they were fighting the officials too, and Atlanta knew it. They rode the chaos, using the whistles as fuel for a third-quarter surge Indiana couldn't claw back from. And yet, through everything, the Fever never quit. Kelsey Mitchell gave one of the finest playoff performances of her career, 27 points, 4 assists, a block, and enough grit to drag her team forward possession after possession. Every time the offense stalled, Mitchell found a way to spark life. Aaliyah Boston, battling foul trouble and double teams, still fought to rip down 12 rebounds, holding her ground in the paint against bigger bodies and relentless contact. Lexi Hull embodied the Fever's spirit, burying a rare 3, chasing defenders around screens, refusing to fade even when the odds screamed otherwise. But the shadow of Caitlin Clark's absence hung over everything. Without her, the Fever had no one to stretch Atlanta's defense. No one to force the Dream to guard 25 feet from the hoop. So Atlanta clogged the paint, daring Indiana to beat them from outside. 2 makes in 15 attempts from 3 told the whole story. Without Clark, the Dream suffocated. Boston inside swarmed Mitchell's drives, and forced rush shots from the rest. Still, what defined Indiana that night wasn't defeat. It was defiance. They played until the buzzer, refusing to let the whistles or the injuries strip away their identity. And now, the story turns. For the first time since 2016, the Fever will host a playoff game inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Nearly a decade of waiting has built to this moment. A crowd, desperate, hungry, ready to remind the league that playoff basketball in Indiana still matters. Stephanie White knows the challenge. Execution must be sharp. The ball must move. Turnovers must vanish. And someone, whether it's Brianna Turner, Tiffany Mitchell, or Bria Hartley, must rise as a secondary scorer to relieve the weight off Kelsey Mitchell. Atlanta won't back down. Their depth, their size, their confidence, it's all coming to Gainbridge. But Indiana has something Atlanta doesn't. The crowd. 17,000 voices that can turn every Indiana run into a tidal wave. Every stop into a gut punch. Every Dream possession into something suffocating. The Fever don't just step into Game 2 with their season on the line. They step in carrying every scar from a season of injuries. Every ounce of frustration from a game marred by whistles. And every drop of hunger from a city that has waited nearly a decade for this night. Win or lose. What happens inside Gainbridge will define this team's season. Because if the Fever pull off the impossible, it won't just be a victory on the scoreboard. It will be a declaration proof that nothing, not injuries, not officiating, not even the weight of history can keep them down.